The Cincinnati Reds. As you can see in the picture, the baseball's best record in 1981. Reason being that let's be with this what if. The history of the Reds commenced with the fact that they were once called the Cincinnati Red Stockings in 1870. They were the first professional team, in a sense, and won 133 straight games before losing one in the 10th inning. They could have went for a tie, but they decided to play for the win, and it bit them in the butt. But anyway, Cincinnati was one of the first 16 teams to have a team in the majors. In 1901, 8 teams from each league. So anyway, the Cincinnati Reds were not into full proximity in the league until 1919 when they took part in the infamous Fixed World Series of 1919. And they actually ended up winning the series 5-3, which was amazing. But the Reds seemed to be doomed themselves. It's like the Reds were jinxed as well as the White Sox because they seemed to not get over the hump into a World Series. In 1940, they ended up winning the World Series, going to the World Series and getting their butts handed to them by the New York Yankees. So anyway, the Reds, try as they might, just couldn't do anything about it. They had some decent teams in the 1950s. They had some young stars like Wally Post, Frank Robinson, and Ted Klusinski, but nothing happened. Their major breakthrough happened in 1961 when they won the National League pennant. Of course, over the AL, there was a lot of noise because of the home run chase by Maris and Mantle. So anyway, the Reds quietly won their league easily and took on the 61 Yankees. They actually played the Yankees tough. They actually won a game. They almost were up 2-0, but Whitey Ford shut them down. The Reds also had a good lead in Game 3 of the World Series at home at Crosley Field, but unfortunately they blew it thanks to Roger Maris finally getting on the scoreboard with a home run. The Yankees won that series. So anyway, the Reds were trying to contend and all that. They needed a good pitcher, so they decided to trade Frank Robinson for Milt Pappas. Of course, we know that trade sucked dilly. Baltimore used Frank Robinson to help them reach a dynasty in the late 60s, early 70s. Ironic as it is, the Reds and Orioles actually bumped into each other in the 1970 World Series. Unfortunately, thanks to Brooks Robinson, the Orioles ended up winning that series. The Reds tried again, and in 72, they came back in the bottom of the ninth, not only to tie the Pittsburgh Pirates in the final game of the LCS, but to win it on Bob Moose's fatal wild pitch. So the Reds got to the 72 World Series, took Oakland to 7 games. Unfortunately, the A's got them in Cincy, if memory serves me right. The Reds were decent in 73 when they took on the New York Mets, and they figured they were going to be a chance for the second straight year. Wrong, though. The Mets beat them in 5 games, and the Mets got to the 73 World Series. 75 was the year the Reds got everything together. Johnny Bench at catcher, Tony Perez, Ted Andreessen, Joe Morgan, Dave Concepcion, George Foster, Ken Griffey Sr., and a few other people. They were good. Since they didn't really have a brand name starting pitcher that could do it, and Sparky Anderson was known as Captain Hook, who basically hooked his pitchers a lot. The Reds won back-to-back World Series in 75 and 76. 75 was more of a classic because it took 7 games, and Boston nearly did it. 76, they rolled the Yankees. They didn't lose a playoff game the whole entire playoffs. And then the Reds kind of fell a little bit down to earth. We'll talk about 1981 in later. But anyway, the Reds, their next big season was 1990. When they went wire to wire in the NL West, won the NLCS from Pittsburgh, and beat the powerful Oakland Athletics in 4 straight. I mean, people underestimated the Reds, especially the A's. Since they would not have much luck in the playoffs after 1990, especially in 2012 when they had a 2-0 series lead in the LDS against the San Francisco Giants, but lost the last 3. And guess who was the manager of the Reds? Dusty freaking Baker. But anyway, the 1981 Reds team were not that far removed from the Big Red Machine, and we're not that far from the team that basically had Pete Rose manage the team. Pete Rose was not around the Reds in 1981. That would be Philly he was on. So the Reds looked good. They had baseball's best record. But you may be asking yourselves, how come when I look at the 1981 record book, the LCS sees the Dodgers and the Expos? Well, simple. 1981 was known as the first in-season strike that really fucked everything up. In 1981, there was a strike in June. There was problems with compensation for free agents, which I can understand that. So what ended up happening is that the owners locked the players out for 51 days. And when the owner's insurance, and the story goes, the owner's insurance from Lloyd's of London was going to be terminated, they had to go back to baseball. They did with the All-Star game, and then they did what they called the second half. Basically, a few teams were not happy with the split season format. The split season format would have it that whoever led the divisions at the 4 points, like at the first post, that being the Yankees, the A's, the Phils, and the Dodgers, would all get automatic spots into a divisional playoff round. So they would face the winner of the second half if it wasn't them themselves. But the stupid move was that they said that if one team won, like the Yankees, if they had won the first half and then won the second half, it would be the runner-up in the second half they faced. But no, they should be going to the LCS. Get all the rest you need. But thankfully, all 4 divisions didn't have a repeat winner. It was the Brewers, the Royals, the Expos, and the Astros. As we all know, in the real 1981 playoffs, the Expos beat Steve Carlton twice on their way to winning the NL East, and the NL West was a fight for the Dodgers. They were down 2-0. But the good point about the Dodgers series was that the Dodgers played the last 3 games on home turf and won them all. Kind of figured. So anyway, Expos Dodgers LCS. Dodgers ended up winning Game 5. Rick Monday. Don't get me started on that. Don't get me started. Obviously, the 1981 Expos would definitely have been my what if for the Expos franchise. But unfortunately, because of the 94 season and how they should have freaking won the whole thing, that's why. Anyway, the Yankees and Brewers AL East battle was huge. Milwaukee was down 2-0. They won 2 games in Yankee Stadium. Game 5 was Yankees' time to shine. Basically, Rick Cerone almost wanted to beat the shit out of Steinbrenner after Game 4. But unfortunately, the Royals, the young Royals, couldn't take care of the Oakland A's, who basically had a pitching staff that had a lot of complete games, and Billy Martin. Ricky Martin, my ass. Anyway, Yankees swept the A's in the ALCS, had a 2-0 lead in the World Series, blew it to the Dodgers. But here's the fact. The Cincinnati Reds actually had the best overall record in the majors. And they didn't get in. Cincy didn't win any one of the 2 halves. But they weren't the only team that got butt wiped. It was the St. Louis Cardinals who also got hit hard in 1981. The Cardinals had the best overall record in the NL East, and they got bit. Like the second best team in baseball. So the 2 best teams didn't even make the playoffs based on their combined records, Cincy and St. Louis. So this what if is an easy one. Reds and Cardinals will meet in the NLCS. We avoid the LDS because that's just bullshit. Of 1981. So, the Reds would play the Cardinals in the NLCS. 1981. We would like to see what happens. Of course, we don't have rosters for playoff rosters because those 2 teams didn't even make the playoffs. Now, we are going to automatically give the Yankees the 1981 AL title because obviously they deserved it and we don't want to fuck them over. So, the 81 Yankees are waiting for the winner of the Reds and the Cardinals. And it's also imperative to know that whoever wins this series will have to start games 1 and 2 in New York because the Yankees did have home field advantage at that time. So here we go. So as you can see, the Cardinals and Reds will fight each other to the death. They both had fairly good records, especially Cincy being 24 games above 500. You see the starting rotation and all that for both teams. Force versus Seaver, both teams decided to throw their best out there. And their best was good. It was 3-2. It wasn't that bad of a game. It was a pitcher's duel. But the Reds put up 3 runs in the first inning. George Foster RBI single scored. Dave Collins, Dave Concepcion 2 RBI double scored. Foster bench. It's worth noting that this is weird. You see, the Reds is another what if, and their second straight what if because I did the Royals one last time. Ken Oberkfell with an RBI double scored. Gary Templeton to make it 3-1. And then in the ninth, Dane Orge hit an RBI single. Dane Orge was part of the 81 Cardinals for Keith Hernandez. There'll be a lot of changes and all that from 81 to 82 for the Cardinals, especially. Keith Hernandez did play, I think, for the 82 team, and then he got traded to the Mets. But, yeah. Gary Templeton. He wouldn't be around in 82 for the Cardinals World Series battle. He was traded to San Diego for Ozzie Smith. People forget Ozzie Smith didn't spend his whole career with the Cardinals. Bob Force went all the way, 103 pitches, but lost. The Reds, you see Dave Collins, who would become a Yankee/Blue Jay later on. Ray Knight. Surprised that Ray Knight was actually a decent player before he went to the Mets. Tom Seaver went 7 innings, and then Joe Price came in with Tom Hume getting the last out for the save. So now comes the hard part. What would you do? Joaquin Anajar and Mario Soto. They don't really have a good third starter, if you will. This is, of course, best of 5. I don't remember this is the first LCS I've done that, well, LCS prior to the game, like a best of 5. But anyway, the Cardinals do show their might in the top of the ninth to win 7-4. Keith Hernandez hits a home run off the Reds. Darryl Porter gets a sac fly, and Gary Templeton with an RBI single. 3-0. Cardinals are fighting it. Johnny Bench with an RBI single to score Collins, 3-1. Then Dave Collins gets himself in the action. 2 RBI single to score Knight and Oyster. George Foster with a home run. He still had the power for the Reds. 4-3. And then in the ninth, Templeton grounded out. Overfell with a single. Lascano with a walk. Reds changed pitchers. Tito Landrum flew out. Only one more out for a 2-0 series lead. Tom Hurd walks. Keith Hernandez walks. We're tied. And then all of a sudden, George Hendrick comes to the plate. A double that scored Lascano, Hurd, and Hernandez. 7-4. Reds had a runner on third base, but Dave Collins struck out. The Cardinals, as you see there. Hernandez, 2 RBIs, Hendrick, 3, Porter, and Templeton. Joaquin Anajar went 6 innings, and then it was Littell, Jim Cat, and Bruce Sutter. Jim Cat pitched for the 82 Cardinals. Wow. Mark Littell, 76 Royals. Bruce Sutter with the save. The Reds, well, Collins were guys. Mario Soto only went 82 thirds. He was the guy who choked it out. Joe Price. So yeah, this is a best of 5. I got to remember that. So the Reds need a third starter. They decide to go with the young Bruce Bereni, while the Cardinals go with Larry Sorensen, as they have no choice, in a sense. And what a game. It went 13 innings. The first run was the Reds in the third when George Foster hit an RBI single to make it 1-0. George Hendrick hit a 2 RBI double to make it 2-1 for the Cardinals in the bottom of the third. Top of the fourth, Ray Knight almost runs in a double play, but he's saved. It's 2-2 for the longest time. Going to late innings. Johnny Bench with a grand slam to make it 6-2. Amazing. Well, I guess the Reds do prove their worth. Dave Concepcion gets another RBI, 7-2. They can't fuck it up now. Well, Lascano grounded out. Tito Landrum with a double. Tommy Hurd scores a double score Landrum to make it 7-3. Keith Hernandez hit by pitch. Hendrick walks. Dane Orge with a 2 RBI double score Hurd and Hernandez. Amazing. Darryl Porter flies out. All the Reds have to do is basically secure it. They have one more out. They choked. Templeton gets Hendrick and Orge scoring 7-7. Tie runner on second for the 81 Reds. 2 key outs, and the Reds can score. And then you got yourself runners on first and second. Bottom of the 13th, George Hendrick RBI single. The Reds choke. So the Cardinals are now 1 win away from going to the World Series. And you see a lot of players. George Foster with an RBI bench with 4 Concepcion, and Knight with 1H Bereni, 8 innings. Joe Price choked it. Tom Hume blown save. Doug Bear, 2 RBIs. Paul Moskal is the guy who fucked it up. The Cardinals, as you see here, Hendrick with 3 RBIs. Hurd, Orge, and Templeton. Larry Sorensen, 6 innings of work. Littell, Cat, Alton, Shirley, 6. Joaquin Andujar even came in for a relief. And John Martin, 3 innings, and got the win. So now the Cardinals and Reds obviously have to go back to their star pitchers because it's a 3-man rotation in an LCS. And bad news, Reds. You lose. Game over. Yeah. 4-3 Cardinals beat the Reds. So the Reds lose this what if. Cardinals scored 3 runs in the first. Dane Orge RBI single. Daryl Porter with a double scored Dane Orge. Gary Templeton with an RBI. 3-0. And then Johnny Bench home run in the 4th, 3-1. Then Johnny Bench with an RBI double scored Foster in the 8th inning. Well, Concepcion had a GRD ground rule double, 3-3. Amazing. What'd you think? Second and third. Reds had second and third, no outs. Nolan, ground ball out. Porter, no, Foster, ground ball out. Johnny Bench, ground ball out. Yikes. Bottom of the 9th, Cardinals don't do anything. The Reds don't do anything in their half of the 10th. But Tommy Herr, RBI single, 4-3. So the 81 Cardinals win this thing, ruining the Reds. Just like that. Bench with 2 RBIs. Concepcion. Tom Seaver pitched well, but Joe Price again choked it. Tom Hume. Cardinals. See there. Hurt or Porter and Templeton with RBIs. Bob Force 7 innings. Bruce Sutter blows a save. That's not like it. Littell, Jim Cat. The Jim Cat. Wish he was a starter. So now we got this situation. Because it's a simplistic move, I am going to make it a 1-game winner-take-all thing. So that means that the Cardinals go with the same lineup. Joaquin Andujar is going to be the closer. So we're going to change it to the New York Yankees 1981 because I can probably guess. Well, this is basically the Reds thing. 59 versus St. Louis gets the home game. So it's a 2-game. So they've decided. So I've decided to make it a 2-game total run series. If the series is tied in runs, we'll do a 3rd game. But this will be kind of funny. But that's what I do. Both teams will play a game at each other's park. Most total runs wins. Extra inning wins are counted as .5s. And in the 9th inning, it was huge for this game with the Yankees. No score till the 4th. Sesto Lascano with an RBI single score. Dale Porter. Tommy Herr gets an RBI single to make it 2-0. Oscar Gamble made it 2-1 with a sac fly. Dave Winfield, fielder's choice 2-2. Bobby Mercer with an RBI single in the bottom of the 5th. Top of the 6th. Keith Hernandez, base hit, score Lascano and Herr. Dave Winfield gets a ground out in the 7th. Nothing there. Gene Tennant's with a fly ball home run in the top of the 9th. 5-4 Cardinals. Sutter comes in the pitch. Nattles flies out. Randolph with a double. Jerry Munfrey with a triple. Dave Winfield flies out. George Hendrick tries to get Munfrey. No, can do. The Yankees win 6-5, and the Yankees do have a 1-run lead, if you will. So Herr, Tennants, Gene Tennants. Keith Hernandez, Sasko, Lascano with RBIs. Andujar with 5 innings. Then Littell, Jim Cat. Remember his performance in LCS? He fucked it all up. Bruce Sutter also fucked it up with a blown save. The Yankees win 6-5. Winfield 3 RBIs. Guthrie 5 2/3. Ron Davis and Dave LaRoche. You know, the floater or something? I don't know what it was. So, switcheroo. So, game 2 in St. Louis. Tommy John goes for the Yankees. The Cardinals are allowed to go back to Bob Force because it was a 3-day rest or something. So, the Cardinals win by multiple runs. They win the whole thing. Otherwise, we'll give it to the Yankees. And the Cardinals won by multiple runs. So, then the 81 Cardinals technically take this thing. Larry Milburn with an RBI single to score Reggie. 1-0. It was 1-0 for the longest time until the bottom of the 8th when George Hendrick hits a 2 RBI double score. Hernandez. Dale Porter, sac fly. Templeton made it 4-1. Yankees needed runs. Winfield single. Bobby Mercer grounds out. Runner moves to second. Reggie Jackson grounds out. Runner moves to third. And all the freaking sudden, it's just hard to imagine. But Larry Milburn hits a triple. It is 4-2. They score another run. They lose 4-3. We have to go to game 3. Rondo, Rick Cerrone, RBI. Nope. Cerrone grounds out. Game over. St. Louis wins 4-2.
Melbourne with the 2 RBIs. Tommy John with the big loss, the big win to Bob Force with Bruce Sutter actually not closing it up. So unfortunately, in a sense, the 81 Reds get screwed and lose to the eventual World Series champions. Which would be funny because in 1982, the Cardinals actually ended up winning the whole thing as is. So they would have got back to back. Amazing, but true. So sorry, Reds, you lose. Game over. Yeah.